Hi, my name is John McKeel, and I'm the author of the little book, Peter, the Friend of Jesus Speaks. It's a short commentary on the little epistle of First Peter. Today's lesson talks about being ready. Are you ready? Jesus is coming again. So let's listen to the words of the apostle. Therefore, preparing your minds for action, and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct, since it is written, "You shall be holy, for I am holy." And if you call on Him as Father, who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Jesus, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. So, are you ready? Preparing your minds for action is an interesting phrase. The Old English Bibles read, "Gird up the loins of your minds." Now, the Message isn't as literal, but it captures Peter's meaning. So roll up your sleeves. There's work to be done, and we need to be prepared for action. When the Israelites ate the first Passover meal in Egypt, God instructed them, "In this manner you shall eat it, with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover." Exodus chapter 12, verse 11. The Israelites had to be ready to go. M.R. Vincent observes, "There's a fitness in the figure as addressed to sojourners and pilgrims," chapter 1:1, chapter 2:11, "who must always be ready to move." Okay, so how can we be ready? First Peter says we need to be sober-minded. That means be free from every form of mental and spiritual drunkenness, from excess passion, rashness, confusion, etc., to be well-balanced, self-controlled. A good way to think of this virtue is to be self-aware. Later in his letter, Peter will tell his readers, "Be sober-minded and watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Later in Peter's letter we read, "The end of all things is at hand. Therefore be self-controlled and sober-minded." The Apostle Paul told Timothy, "As for you, always be sober-minded." 2 Timothy 4, verse 5. Next, Peter tells us to set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. But what does it mean to set your hope fully? Is it possible some people have a backup plan? They aren't fully focused Christians? Surely not. Christians, but I've known people who become Christians just in case. I've met Christian Buddhists, and becoming a Christian just in case is especially true among agnostics. Agnostic is the Greek word Peter uses next. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. Ignorance is agnoia, the lack of knowledge, the root of the English word agnostic. Peter says Christians, rather than being ignorant or superstitious, need to strive to go through life with both eyes wide open. We're to be obedient children. But what are the characteristics of obedient children? First, they're not, quote, conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. Don't let the world make you into something you're not. You are children of God. Paul uses the same word, conformed, in Romans 12, verse 2. He says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. The next characteristic of God's children is holy conduct. Holiness demands we be different. We answer to a higher standard, a higher calling. And finally, Peter says, if you call God your Father, be careful how you live. God is watching. Some people are terrified by this idea of God watching. Is he watching to catch us making a mistake, or is he waiting to congratulate us on bringing honor to the family? You know, when I was a boy, I swam competitively. I always did my best. But when I knew my father was there in the bleachers watching, I put something extra into my race. I wanted to make him proud. The smile on his face was far better than any ribbon or trophy. So, what motivates holiness? First, we are exiles. This world is not our home. We are citizens of heaven, and someday we will go home. The proof of our citizenship is holiness. So, what does holiness mean? We say the Bible is holy, holy Bible. That means it is different from every other book. It is special. It is the holy Bible. When I was a child, every morning I ate my Cheerios from an everyday bowl. But I knew we were having special guests for dinner when Mom set out the good dishes. The Apostle Paul pointed this out to young Timothy. He says, now in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honorable use, some for dishonorable. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart as holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 20 and 21. In other words, we are special, and we need to behave that way. Second, we're also valuable. We've been ransomed. The word ransom, luthro in Greek, is relatively rare in the New Testament. It's found in Luke 24:21, redeem Israel. Redeem us from all lawlessness, Titus 2:14. But the word redemption was widespread among the Christians. Prisoners could be redeemed. So we need to ask two more questions. What have we been redeemed from? And what was the ransom price? Actimer explains, the redemption to which the author refers in this context is not so much from human sin or guilt as it is from a former way of life. Peter says they've been redeemed from the feudal ways inherited from your forefathers. Now, isn't that curious? If Peter is writing to Gentiles, former pagans, then we can understand the apostle describing their former lives as feudal. However, if Peter is writing to Jewish Christians, calling their former way of life of no use, idle, empty, fruitless, useless, powerless, lacking truth, that seems impossibly harsh. Either Peter is thinking of converted Gentiles, or he is considering the old law in comparison to the new law. It's as if he is saying, compared to Christianity, Judaism is feudal. If so, Peter's come a long way in his faith since the days when Paul had to confront him in Antioch. You can read about that in Galatians chapter 2, verses 11 through 14. Now let's consider the price of the ransom. Peter says, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. Remember, this plan was not an afterthought. It was foreknown. The prophets were curious about the plan's fulfillment, chapter 1, verses 1 through 12, and we are blessed to have experienced it. And God bless you. I hope you've enjoyed our lesson and look forward to seeing you in the very next one. God bless. Bye-bye.